In 1977, an American president stood in Tehran and called Iran an island of stability. 2 years later, Iranians were burning American flags in the streets. And 4 decades after that, a U.S. drone killed Iran's top general on a road outside Baghdad airport. And in 2026, a U.S. and Israeli strike killed Iran's supreme leader himself, the man who had ruled for 36 years. Today, the two countries have not had formal diplomatic relations for over 40 years. No embassies, no ambassadors, no direct flights, just sanctions, missiles, and proxy armies. So how did two countries that called each other allies end up here? Let's go back to the beginning. Here is a map of the Middle East in 1950. Iran sits right here, along the Persian Gulf. To the north, the Soviet Union, enormous and expanding. For the United States, Iran was the perfect wall between the Soviets and the Gulf. Washington needed Iran, and Iran had something the whole world wanted: enormous oil reserves, among the largest on Earth. But a British company called the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company controlled most of it. Iran got 16% of the profits. Britain kept the rest. In 1951, a lawyer named Mohammad Mossadegh became Iran's prime minister. He ran on one idea: take the oil back. Parliament voted unanimously to nationalize the oil industry. London was furious. Britain organized a global boycott of Iranian oil. Iranian exports collapsed. The economy started bleeding. Then, Britain went to Washington. "We need you to remove him." "Fine, we'll handle it." In August 1953, the CIA ran Operation Ajax. CIA agents paid protesters to riot across Tehran. They bribed military officers and planted fake stories in newspapers. After 3 days of manufactured chaos, the army moved against Mossadegh. He was arrested, tried for treason, and spent the rest of his life under house arrest. Power went to the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The Shah was exactly what Washington wanted: pro-American, anti-Soviet, loyal to the oil arrangement. America poured in money, weapons, and military advisors. By the late 1970s, Iran had the 5th largest military on Earth. The Shah modernized cities, built highways, opened universities. He also ran a secret police called SAVAK. SAVAK arrested thousands. It tortured people who criticized the regime. While the Shah built palaces, rural Iranians had almost nothing. In 1971, he threw a party at Persepolis that cost $200 million. It celebrated 2,500 years of Persian Empire. Regular Iranians were not invited. Resentment built for decades. Then it released all at once. In 1978, protests broke out across Iran. Workers, students, merchants, and clerics marched together. One man gave them a single target: Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He had been exiled by the Shah in 1964 and now lived outside Paris. From France, he recorded cassette tapes calling for revolution and smuggled them into Iran. In September 1978, the army opened fire on protesters in Tehran's Jaleh Square. At least 88 people died. After that, protests turned into a revolution. In January 1979, the Shah boarded a plane and never came back. On February 1st, Khomeini's plane touched down in Tehran. 3 million people came to see him. Within 10 days, the monarchy collapsed. Iran became an Islamic republic. The United States had just lost its closest ally in the region. The real break, though, came 9 months later. The Shah was dying of cancer. He needed surgery. President Carter let him enter the United States for treatment. To Iranians, this triggered one memory above all others: 1953. The CIA put the Shah back in power once. They could do it again. On November 4th, 1979, student protesters stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. They took 52 American diplomats and staff hostage. The students demanded the Shah be sent back to face trial. Return him? Out of the question. The hostage crisis lasted 444 days. American television showed the blindfolded hostages every night. Carter froze $12 billion in Iranian assets held in U.S. banks. He ordered a military rescue mission, Operation Eagle Claw. 8 helicopters flew into the Iranian desert in April 1980. 3 of them had mechanical failures. The mission was aborted. On the way out, a helicopter collided with a transport plane. 8 Americans died. The failed rescue finished Carter's presidency. Ronald Reagan won the 1980 election in a landslide. The hostages were freed on January 20th, 1981, the exact hour Reagan was inaugurated. Nobody could agree on whether that timing was a coincidence. Meanwhile, next door, a different crisis was forming. Saddam Hussein had watched Iran's revolution closely. A weakened and chaotic Iran looked like easy territory. In September 1980, Iraq invaded. Saddam expected it to be over in weeks. He got an 8-year war. The fighting was some of the bloodiest since World War II. Iraq used chemical weapons against Iranian soldiers on a massive scale. Mustard gas, nerve agents. The UN documented it. Nobody intervened. Here, the United States made a choice it would spend decades trying to explain. Washington backed Saddam Hussein. The Reagan administration gave Iraq satellite intelligence on Iranian troop positions. American officials visited Baghdad to help coordinate military strategy. One of those officials was Donald Rumsfeld. He later became Secretary of Defense, the same man who ordered the invasion of Iraq in 2003. At the same time, the Reagan team was secretly selling weapons to Iran. The money from those sales funded anti-communist rebels in Nicaragua. Congress had banned that funding. Reagan's team did it anyway. That became the Iran-Contra affair. Several officials were convicted. Reagan said he was not aware. The war between Iran and Iraq ended in August 1988, with no winner. Roughly 1 million people were dead. 2 months after the ceasefire, tragedy. In July 1988, a U.S. Navy warship called the USS Vincennes was patrolling the Gulf. Its crew picked up a radar contact and called it a fighter jet on an attack approach. They launched 2 surface-to-air missiles. The contact was Iran Air Flight 655, a civilian Airbus on a scheduled commercial route. All 290 people on board were killed. 66 of them were children. "We made a terrible mistake. We're deeply sorry." Iran called it deliberate murder. The U.S. later paid $61 million in compensation to the families. It never formally apologized. Iran never forgot. Through the 1990s, the 2 countries settled into a cold standoff. No embassies, no flights, no direct communication. America kept sanctions on. Iran kept funding armed groups across the region. In 1997, a moderate named Mohammad Khatami became Iran's president. He talked about a dialogue of civilizations. He reached out to the West. Washington responded with small gestures and no real policy change. Then, September 11th happened. Iran was not involved. Iranian cities held candlelight vigils for the American dead. Khamenei publicly condemned the attacks. Iran even quietly helped the U.S. topple the Taliban in Afghanistan. For a few months, they were pulling in the same direction. Then, in January 2002, President Bush gave his State of the Union address. He named 3 countries as an axis of evil: Iraq, North Korea, and Iran. Tehran's reformists felt blindsided. The hardliners said they had been right all along. Any quiet opening that had existed closed within days. In August 2002, an Iranian opposition group made a revelation. Iran had been secretly building nuclear enrichment facilities for years. A facility at Natanz, another at Iraq. This is purely for civilian power. You're building a bomb. The international community imposed sanctions, then heavier ones, then heavier again. By 2012, Iranian oil exports had dropped by half. The Iranian rial lost 80% of its value in a single year. Medicine became expensive and hard to find for ordinary Iranians. Iran kept enriching. Then a different kind of war started, one neither side would admit to. In 2010, centrifuges at Natanz started behaving strangely. They spun too fast, then too slow, then they broke. It was a computer virus called Stuxnet, the most sophisticated cyber weapon ever used up to that point in history. It destroyed around 1,000 centrifuges and set Iran's program back by 2 years. The US and Israel never confirmed they built it. Iranian nuclear scientists also started dying. 5 were assassinated between 2010 and 2012. Car bombs, motorcycle gunmen. Iran blamed the CIA and Israel. No one confirmed it. No one denied it convincingly. By 2013, a new Iranian president arrived with a calmer tone. Hassan Rouhani wanted to end the sanctions without giving up enrichment entirely. Barack Obama was looking for a way to stop the nuclear program without going to war. Negotiations started. They ran for 2 years. On July 14, 2015, the deal was signed in Vienna. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA. Iran capped its enrichment well below weapons grade. It cut its enriched uranium stockpile by 98%. It dismantled 2/3 of its centrifuges. International inspectors from the IAEA got access to the facilities. In return, sanctions were lifted, frozen assets released. Iran could sell oil again. For about a year, the deal held. Then the 2016 American election happened. Donald Trump had spent the campaign calling the JCPOA the worst deal ever negotiated. On May 8, 2018, he pulled the United States out of it. He restarted all the old sanctions and layered new ones on top. He called the strategy maximum pressure. Any country that bought Iranian oil faced U.S. financial penalties. Iran's oil exports fell from 2.5 million barrels a day to under 300,000. The Iranian rial collapsed again. Inflation hit 40%. Hardliners grew stronger inside Iran. Moderates lost their credibility fast. Iran started enriching uranium past the JCPOA limits, then past that. Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen stepped up attacks on U.S. forces and interests. Tankers in the Gulf were attacked with mines and drones. A U.S. surveillance drone was shot down over the Strait of Hormuz. Both sides were circling a war neither publicly asked for. Then, January 3, 2020, Qasem Soleimani was the most powerful military figure in Iran, possibly the second most powerful person in the country. He commanded the Quds Force, the branch of Iran's Revolutionary Guard that runs operations abroad. Over 20 years, he had personally built Iran's entire network of proxy militias. He was flying back from Damascus when his plane landed at Baghdad International Airport. A U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone was already circling above. President Trump gave the order. 2 missiles hit Soleimani's convoy on the airport road. Soleimani was killed instantly. So was Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, the head of Iraq's most powerful militia. Iran's supreme leader Khamenei wept publicly. He promised severe revenge. Tens of millions of Iranians filled the streets for Soleimani's funeral procession. On January 8th, Iran launched 16 ballistic missiles at 2 U.S. bases in Iraq, Al-Assad Air Base and Erbil. More than 100 American soldiers were later diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries. The U.S. did not strike back. Both sides stood down. But in those same hours, Iran made a catastrophic mistake. Ukraine International Airlines flight PS-752 took off from Tehran at 6 in the morning. Iran's air defenses were on maximum alert, expecting a U.S. counterattack at any moment. An operator identified the airliner as an incoming cruise missile. He fired. His commanders could not reach him in time. The missile struck the plane 2 minutes after takeoff. All 176 people on board were killed. 82 were Iranian citizens. 57 were Canadian. Many were students returning to university. Iran denied it for 3 days, then admitted it was their mistake. The admission triggered massive protests inside Iran against the government. Iranians who had nothing kind to say about America were furious at their own government. Today, the conflict has no resolution in sight. Iran now enriches uranium to 60% purity. Weapons grade starts at 90. Diplomats have met repeatedly to revive the nuclear deal. Nothing has held. Iran funds Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and militias across Iraq and Syria. The U.S. keeps roughly 40,000 troops across the Middle East, partly to contain Iran's reach. And through all of this runs one narrow waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. About 20% of all oil traded on Earth passes through here every day. Iran's coastline sits right on it. If Iran closed it, fuel prices would spike across the planet within days. That is the leverage Tehran has never fully used and never fully given up. For 4 years after Soleimani, the war stayed in the shadows. Proxies traded fire, tankers burned, nuclear talks collapsed, restarted, and collapsed again. Then the shadow war stepped into the open. In April 2024, for the first time in history, Iran struck Israel directly. Hundreds of drones and missiles in a single night. Most were shot down, but a line had been crossed. In October, Iran did it again. Nearly 200 ballistic missiles. Israel struck back at Iran's air defenses and missile factories. On June 13, 2025, Israel launched the largest attack in the history of the conflict. 200 jets, over 100 targets, nuclear scientists and top commanders killed in their homes. Iran answered with waves of missiles on Israeli cities. And then, on June 22nd, the United States joined the war. American B-2 bombers struck the underground nuclear sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. Operation Midnight Hammer, the bunker-buster bombs Iran had feared for 20 years. Iran retaliated against the largest U.S. base in the Middle East, in Qatar. 12 days after it began, a ceasefire held. The Pentagon said Iran's program was set back 1 to 2 years. It didn't last. Talks opened in early 2026, Oman, then Geneva, and broke down over a single number: how many years Iran would stop enriching. On February 28, 2026, the U.S. and Israel launched a joint operation. The Pentagon called it Operation Epic Fury. Israel called it Operation Roaring Lion. In under 12 hours, nearly 900 strikes hit Iran's missiles, air defenses, and military leadership. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed. So was the head of the Revolutionary Guard, the defense minister, and the armed forces chief of staff. The man who had ruled Iran for 36 years was gone. A week later, under pressure from the Revolutionary Guard, Iran named his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as the new supreme leader. Oil markets reacted instantly. Brent crude, near $72 a barrel before the strikes, surged past $120 within 2 weeks, one of the largest oil price spikes on record. On March 4th, Iran announced the Strait of Hormuz was closed and threatened any ship that tried to pass. Tanker traffic through it collapsed by 95%. Trump demanded unconditional surrender. Iran refused. A U.S. naval blockade choked Iran's ports. Missiles kept flying across the Gulf. After months of attrition, both sides stepped back from the edge. Pakistan brokered a deal. On June 17, 2026, Trump signed it remotely from Versailles, just after the G7 summit. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, signed it in Tehran. The Islamabad Memorandum, a 14-point framework. Strikes stop. The Strait of Hormuz reopens, toll-free for 60 days. The naval blockade ends. Oil sanctions are waived, freeing up hundreds of billions of dollars in frozen revenue. But the hardest question was left unanswered. No deal on Iran's uranium stockpile, only a promise to discuss downgrading it later. It was not peace, it was a pause. And the pause didn't even hold 2 weeks. On June 28th, the U.S. struck Iranian missile and radar sites. Iran fired back at American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. Iran threatened to halt the talks completely. Trump warned that Iran would no longer exist if the strikes continued. As of this recording, the ceasefire is still standing, barely. So what happens now? Nobody knows. But there are only a few ways this can go. 1. The deal holds. Inspectors return, enrichment freezes, and a cold, armed peace settles in. 2. The deal collapses, like every deal before it, and the bombing resumes. 3. A wounded, leaderless Iran turns inward, and the pressure finally cracks the regime from the inside. 4. Iran, its sites in ruins and its leader dead, decides it will never be safe without the one thing it never finished building: a bomb. 70 years ago, these two countries were allies, an island of stability, one American president called it. Now they sit across a table in Geneva, counting centrifuges, and neither one trusts the other to keep a promise for 60 days. The missiles are still pointing, and the next move belongs to whoever blinks first.